And we're going to use this example of what can be done to debug your job search. And finally, we'll wrap this up with exploring two main barriers that stand between you applying for a job and you getting the actual interview. It won't take too much of your time. I'll try to finish under 30 minutes. We may go a bit over that, but that depends on the number of questions you have. So, by the way, yeah, regarding the questions, guys, please take notes during the session, and I'll be expecting at least one question, preferably three, at the end of the session. So, talking about debugging, you can really in the context of the job search, you can think about it as problem-solving skill, because you know what they say when you got hired the first time and you didn't learn much about the job search, the second time is going to be much more difficult because you will be much more demotivated because you didn't learn much, you don't have the appropriate skills, so you can't really understand where the problem is, because like last time you maybe were just lucky, but if you learn these solid skills, it's going to be every new transition to new position and like all the growth in your career is going to be much easier if you master that. I like to draw a line next to software development because when you're stuck or you got a bug to fix, it simply means that it's time to debug your program and look for the potential high-risk areas. Now, before we go any further, I want to tell a few things about myself. And unfortunately, I can't meet each of you in person, but guys, I would appreciate if you turn on your cameras. Also, let me know in the chat if you're a student, if you're already working, or just in the middle of the job search. So in my case, I'm actually, I'm going to tell a bit more about my background on the next slides, during the next slides, but just so like we understand what's the range of people this session is mostly useful for. I would appreciate if you share a bit more about your background. Okay, so we got Corpontron working as junior software dev, looking to get a next better position. It's yeah, that makes sense. I guess if you've got a couple of years of experience as junior, you can totally apply for intermediate positions, and I'm pretty sure you'll be able to learn and pick up a few things from today's webinar. Okay, you guys are quiet. I'm gonna move on, but I hope to hear more from you with my next questions. So right now I'm a software developer in Sweden, and I got 5 years of experience in full stack development. During these 5 years, I had a chance to work at 5 different organizations, and I know it sounds like a lot. I didn't really change my job every year because that's what it may sound like. But my first few positions were contract positions, and I just stayed there for a couple of months. And my last 2 positions, I stayed there for almost 2 years. And to give you the best idea about what you can do if you master the job search, I'm just gonna tell about you through the prism of my experience, because I find that it's always easier to follow someone else's path, and such stories were always inspiring for me, and I always found those relatable. So right now, starting comparing my salary 5 years ago to my today's salary, it grew to 60%, which means a bit more than 2.5 times. And I think I can call myself an awesome software engineer, but what I think I did on the early stages of my career, I mastered the the important job search principles, and I'm going to tell you a bit more in depth about this during the next slides. So again, a few more words about my background. So these 5 years of experience and probably like a decent salary raise, it didn't happen all overnight. And back in 2016, I arrived to Canada to study as an international student in the software development program. I didn't really have any completed formal education or work experience in software. And I know that everyone on this call are coming from different backgrounds as well. And I totally understand that getting the first, the second, even the third job is a huge challenge. Actually, I think like when you're on the market, when you're looking for a job, and probably no matter how many years you have, every time you're going to focus new challenges. You're going to face new challenges, and it's important to at least learn the basics, the core skills here. So I know that no matter if you came to Canada as an international student or you were born in here, the job search is really the area of our lives where no one is getting a free pass. By the way, this picture, this is me first time visiting the Art Gallery of Ontario. And I had a face full of hopes of becoming a high-level specialist in software. And by moving one small step at a time, I'm getting there. I think I'm getting there. And I want to learn this about you. So share in the chat what's the most favorite place you like to spend time in your city. And mine is probably Lakeshore in Toronto. I can say that I really enjoy grabbing a cup of coffee and spending a couple of hours, especially when it's sunny, because you're still getting this cool wind, but so it's like you don't feel too hot, and you're getting a lot of vitamin D, because by being a software engineer, you probably or like pursuing a career in software, you're probably not spending too much time outside. So I can relate. Love coffee runs. Yep, totally agree with you. It makes my day so much better when I get a coffee, when I get a takeout sometime during my weekdays. Okay, so moving on. You know how it started, and I just really want to tell you more about the story about my first experience. So my first experience on the job search market, and I was happily studying in the college, and until after 1 year, I had to start looking for a co-placement because my program had such option, and it was really important for me to get some industry before I graduate. This was not thought from my side, but my parents suggested me that I should do it, and honestly, I'm really grateful that I did follow their advice here. I can't say I was a perfect student, but I was an A student. But again, I didn't get A's for all of my classes, but I tried to focus as much as I can on the programming and web development classes because honestly, I love those the most. But I'm gonna tell you that didn't help me much during my job search. And to give you a good example, I had a friend, my classmate, who I think was less experienced in development, and he did a bit worse in his classes, and he was able to get the job offer for his internship probably a month before I did. So that kind of made me sad, but that's okay. And when I first had a chance to face the job search, I had a class in the college to help me prepare for getting my first internship, but I can't really say it was very helpful. I learned some general rules about how to build my resume and answer some commonly asked questions like what are your strengths and weaknesses. Also, like where do you want to be in 5 years? And it was helpful, but on the other side, I think this is just like 20% of all the job search skills and information you have to know, you have to master. So it wasn't really sufficient in my case. I don't know, maybe I was just unlucky at that time, but I'm grateful that I didn't find the job as fast as my friend did, and I'm going to tell you why. So again, at that time, I tried to focus a lot on my resume, and I didn't have any strategy in place because again, that was just my first time looking for a job in corporate Canada. And actually, like, before that, I never really imagined how would that look, how would corporate job look. So I was, uh, I don't know. I feel like I was so much lost at that time. But again, I tried focusing on these two things as much as I could. So one thing, I continuously applied for the jobs. I actually started applying for the jobs probably 2 weeks before my semester started. So I had some head start, and that didn't help me much. I'm gonna tell you why. But something else that I did is I kept improving and polishing my resume and the job search in general. So continuing this story, after applying for a couple of weeks, I realized that I didn't receive any invites for the interviews or just any feedback at all. So again, I felt a bit demotivated, and my classmates finding their jobs didn't help me much. So I knew I have to do something differently, and I that really made me understand that um, someone may be luckier than me, and on top of that, um, in this case, that made me like that kind of forced me to learn as much as I could from in this topic. And many people talked about networking. That I didn't know much about that because being a school graduate, you don't have to do a lot of networking. You have friends, you have parents, you have parents' friends, but uh, you don't know how to approach people that you've never met and ask them for something. But in Canada, a few guys that I thought are experienced and achieved more than me, they really suggested focusing on networking. So I honestly thought, like, what the hell not? I'm not really losing anything, and I just created my LinkedIn profile. That was a new thing for me too, and I thought, yeah, I should do it. So I started with professors in the college. Then I moved on to my friends and asked their feedback about my job search, about my resume. But in the end of the day, I think the most valuable guidance came from people who had actually done their co-op somewhere. So in my case, the lesson I learned is it's important to focus on such groups since they're just a couple of steps ahead of you, and they still remember the struggle, so they're more willing to help you. Plus, they probably remember more because that didn't happen too long ago. And here are a few screenshots of when I actually messaged people, and I didn't know that I messaged people that I didn't really know on LinkedIn, and they actually were eager to help. Like these first two people, uh, like one of them did their co-op in CABC, and another was from Deloitte, and I don't remember the context, but I'm pretty sure like I did apply for positions at these two companies. And the last one was the professor from my college. I knew that she works in police as program manager, and I remember she also focused a lot in her classes on networking. So I thought she would be a good person to ask. But well, I didn't get much help from her, but at least she showed me some direction. So maybe you won't get the desired result, but at least you'll get some more feedback. And also, again, that doesn't mean that everyone will even respond to you, but you have to keep trying again until you get the desired result. By the way, guys, this session is also a good time to network. So if you're up to, post your LinkedIn and just connect to each other. You'd be able to follow each other's stories, learn more things from each other. So to wrap up this story, weeks passed and I kept learning new details and feedback about my job search. You can think of this process as asking a senior developer to get help with your task. It's always nice when someone just comes over to your desk and points you to the problem. I don't know, when I joined Rakuten Kobo as a junior developer, that was very helpful for me. And as I was learning new things, I did a major update on my resume almost every week until I got the first invitation for the interview. So again, this is an important factor. If you're stuck in your job search and you're not getting any feedback, you're not getting any response, most likely you're doing something wrong. So just keep on improving until you actually get some feedback, until you actually get a response from one of the employers. In my case, eventually, after almost 2 or 2.5 months, I landed 2 job offers, one with Canadian Tire and another with Rakuten Kobo. I went with the one that paid more and also had a higher score on Glassdoor. By the way, guys, Glassdoor, that's also a very important tool you got to master, just because every time you prepare for the interview, that's your first go-to place where you check what you should expect from the interview. So just know, if you don't know anything about this, just make a note for yourself and go check it out right after this webinar. And now, guys, I would also like to learn what's the perfect company you want to work at. I don't know. I've heard about the positions you want to work at, and some of you already shared the company as well, but I didn't hear much about the company, and that's also very important because if you're being focused on the narrow sector of jobs and companies, it will help you a lot to get the job faster in most cases. So during my first job, I didn't really focus much on this, but I think that was a miss from my end. I think because if I could target people who just for example worked in banking like in CIBC, I would definitely find my job much faster. Okay, moving on further, and now I'm pretty sure you have some understanding of what is debugging in job search and some common approaches to how you can fix the bugs in your processes. However, it seems like most of you guys are already have some background in engineering in software. Like I know Kai, you're looking for a full stack development job. Corbantron, your perfect position would be a front end developer position, and you guys should know that as a software engineers, you have to know your processes and technologies you work with in depth, and same goes for the job search. And the first thing that actually happens after you hit submit or apply button on the website is your resume being analyzed by an ATS system. And ATS stands for Applicant Tracking System. And after your resume is submitted, your profile is given some sort of abstract score, let's say from 0 to 100. That score doesn't mean much, but your profile is being compared to others based on the score. And again, not all companies use this tool, but remember that 99% of Fortune 500 companies use the ATS tool. So it is very, very likely that your last application went through this process. Basically, to give you even more context, unless you're being referenced by someone who's already in the company, your resume has to be strong enough to get a competitive score. Because if you're being referenced, you're skipping this step, and that's also another reason to network, guys. Unfortunately, there is no good way for you or like for anyone except the recruiting manager to know your score. But there are some simple steps you can follow that would help you to, be the most competitive, to make your profile as competitive as possible. And so to do that, to achieve that, first of all, you have to have the same skills and technologies in your resume, using the same words as in the job ad. But it shouldn't look like you just copied the required qualification section. It has to be added very elegantly in your resume and experience sections. So pretty much you want to use the same words of the skills and technologies, but just try to use them in a different context. Also, another tip is if you're repeating the name of the technology, let's say you put JavaScript in your summary and also you're using it in experience. So something I would suggest you do is use a synonym for this. Let's say use a short version, just go with JS or use ECMAScript. Again, this would help you to get a better keyword coverage because you're doing all this, like you're analyzing the job ad just to get a sense of what are the most important keywords so that you can get the high score. Also, another aspect of this stage is your formatting. Please, guys, don't add very complicated, like insanely complex formatting. Don't use columns. Usually tables are okay, just because remember this one fact that 75% of job seekers are being rejected by ATS system due to readability issues. That simply means, I know that's ridiculous, but that simply means that let's say 100 people applied for the junior developer position at CIBC, and 3/4 of these people, 75%, their profiles, the contents of their profiles, like their experience, will not even be considered just because their resume isn't formatted properly. So that's the first thing you should focus on. Well, who knows? Maybe you're very experienced, but maybe your resume has a bad formatting. That's why many ATS systems aren't able to process your application. That's why you're not being called for the interviews. Finally, question from Jasmina. Is Microsoft Word, Google Doc okay to use for resume building? Yeah, they're good, but in the end of the day, I suggest you transfer this document to PDF. So I strongly suggest you using only PDF versions. So one last thing about ATS, there is actually a few more things that you can do to get at least some sense of how strong your resume is against this particular job ad. There is a tool on Indeed. It's called Resume Review, and there is another tool called JobScan. So in these tools, you would just upload your resume that you would use to apply for a particular position, and you would also use the text, the requirements of that position, and it would cross-reference and analyze your resume and give you some sort of abstract score. Again, this is all abstract. It doesn't mean that you'll be called for the interview because so many factors are being involved in this process, but at least you would get some sense, right? And I'm going to post these links at the very end. But you can Google again, that's Resume Review, the Indeed tool, and JobScan. There is one more thing that comes into play here. And getting a high score with ATS is not a win yet. Basically, after ATS rejected 75% of applications that had bad formatting, there are still 25 left. And now it's actually the time when HR or recruiting manager takes a look at your resume, at your profile. But again, it's not that simple with this step either. On average, a recruiting manager spends 7 seconds looking at your resume. This has even become a 7 seconds rule. I know it sounds a bit weird, and like if you're just entering the job search arena, you might think that every application that that the recruiter receives, they're taking a good care of them and analyzing your links, your LinkedIn, but actually that's not the case, and there are a few things you should know. So for you to uh, get the most as many benefits from it as you can, you have to put all your most impressive and relevant information about yourself at the top of your resume. That's why we suggest our students never to have education sections at the top of their resumes, unless you went to a prestigious school like Harvard or MIT. And to understand really what impression your resume makes in 7 seconds, well, just give it to your friend or your mom. Let them look for 7 seconds and just ask them in the end what they remember from it. And I'm pretty sure they won't remember more than 2 lines of your resume. This would probably be the last 2 lines, or like the most impressive facts about yourself, and they probably won't even be able to read anything after line 10. So yeah, pretty much like everything that you have in your summary and experience has to be as relevant and as impressive as possible, and you have to focus on these both things at the same time, because if you're missing out on one or another, you're losing some points. Because let's say you're applying for a JavaScript developer role, but you have a strong knowledge of Python, and you put that first in your summary. Now, honestly, if I look at such a resume, I would think that you're probably a Python developer and you don't know much of JavaScript. So I would think that someone who has JavaScript in their first line of their summary, like the first thing you see there, apart from the contact information, I would consider such person more experienced than you. So again, keep that in mind. And also, it's time when the style of your resume is being judged too. It has to be very consistent and formal. And you also might think about making it visually appealing. That would be a bonus, but remember that everyone has different taste, so don't get too creative. Just try to be on the formal side rather than creative one. Now, guys, I'd like you to put in the chat what's your current order of sections in your resume right now. If you don't have your resume, then put in the chat what order of sections you would have if you created resume right now. I'm gonna give you 1 minute now. Okay, so if you don't have your resume created at the moment, to give you a tip, if you don't have any experience, I strongly suggest that you put summary first and your projects second. Because again, education is good, and if you have high GPA, that's awesome, but it's really not as important as your hands-on skills, at least in software field. Okay, so we got Wood, summary, skills, experience, education, personal projects. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good, but you might want to move personal projects above education. Just again, you may have education, you may not have any formal education. It doesn't matter much, but if you have cool projects, you have to show them off. Kairat got experience, side projects, skills, education. That looks pretty good too, but I would also move skills, put them first, since it doesn't look like you have summary section. So whenever a recruiter looks at your resume, you want them to focus on the most impressive stuff. And so you really want to summarize your skills and distill them and show them to the recruiter, like how good you are for this specific position. Core patron, name, summary, education, work experience, side projects. Yeah, probably like same suggestion as for Wood. You may want to move education and put it last. Davesh got summary, skills, experience, certification, education. Again, it depends on like what kind of certificates you have, but I think this order makes sense for me. If I had like strong certificates in the field, and you know that the certificates are important, it's good to have them at the top too. So like not at the very top, but after experience, that's probably the best place. So finally, guys, as of now, you know what ATS is and what 7 seconds rule is. And in my experience, these are the main barriers you have to overcome to be invited for the interview. Most of the people who reach out to HirePrism for help with getting a job are having difficulties overcoming specifically this phase when you apply for the job, but you're not receiving any feedback or you're not being invited for the interview. So some people who reached out to us, they were losing hope, and I totally understand it, and I know how it feels because you're being demotivated a lot. So we try to focus on these areas as much as possible while also pushing the networking aspect. In my honest opinion, that's probably the most challenging part, and with our help, our clients save a lot of money, which is if you save a lot of time, which is if you convert it to money, is totally worth it. Like in this use case, you can think about it as you looking for a job for the period of 4 months, and let's say you're being less lucky, and well, if you search for the job by yourself, you would probably get it after a couple of months, because like, well, you just have to get a sense of how it feels to look for a job, and then you keep improving some skills, and still the hiring process takes some time. It may take like up to a couple of months, so most likely you'll be hired on month 4. What we do in HirePrism, like with all the resources and program, we try to be as efficient and build as effective strategy for yourself as possible. So with that, people actually save time, and you may pay a bit more for the first couple of months. That would be just $50 a month, and you may receive less for the first months, but with the help of salary negotiation, you would get a higher salary, and you would be getting more starting from your first job. And this is not just like on the 4 months period. This is going to be ongoing for the first year and the next year, because the next job you would even look for a much higher salary, so you would add like 20% more on top of that. So 20% more on top of 4,000 is more than on top of 3,600. So it's pretty much like paying for the bootcamp. You can obviously learn the web development yourself, but with proper mentorship and resources, you can increase your chances of getting the job significantly, because you learn from those who just completed these steps, and likely much likely you will increase your compensation at least by 10%, because we fully support you with that. We have all the documentation, like we have some case studies, and I know with like this information we gave you today, most of the people would probably it would be sufficient enough to get the jobs faster than before they learned about this. But if you still feel you need some push, you need some help, some more information is missing, reach out to us. Just give us a call. We will just talk with you first and then decide if it's even worth it. Also, it's time for questions, and I also want to see in the chat what was the most interesting and valuable thing you learned today. So I'm open for any questions. So drop your question in the chat or raise your hand, and we can have a quick chat in here. Just gonna give you one more minute. Good question, Devesh. Interesting summary. Honestly, that's probably the most important part of your whole building resume process. And in my experience, it's also a challenging part, the most challenging part, because even till these days, I find it very difficult for myself. But what you want to do, you want to look at the job ad, so you would get a sense of what they're looking for, what skills are important for them. So let's say you have experience in C# and React, but they're looking for Java developer. In your case, you know that, well, C# and Java are kind of similar, and you can think of this skill as transferable. So I would say consider building a full stack, some very, very small application in Java, so that at least you get a sense of what it is. But in this case, I would probably put that you have a decent knowledge of Java first in your summary, and then reverse engineer the other points the other technologies and skills they're looking for. So this is like a game of reverse engineering, and then distilling your skills via the prism of their requirements. But no, that's actually a very good and relevant question, and again, I struggle with it myself till these days. Oh yeah, resume review websites. Just give me a minute. Actually, you know what? We're gonna send each of you an email after this webinar, and I'll share these two websites with you on that email, because I don't really want to distract myself with this. But at least you'll get that saved in your inbox. So again, guys, any other questions? And tell me about one thing you learned today that's that was helpful, or also, yeah, if it wasn't, tell me that. I'm glad to hear negative feedback too, because we really want to improve on this for our next webinar. Yes, Divesh. Oh, so tell me, which part did you miss? I can, okay. I'm gonna send you an email anyway, but in case you wanna, get to learn more about something that we missed, just hit reply on that email. And yeah, the ATS system is it's like hidden filter. No one really thinks about it, but it's so important. And like when I was preparing for this webinar, that was a shocker to me, because it was a shocker to me just because I never thought that 75% of applicants are being rejected just because of their formatting. That's honestly so ridiculous. But I mean, yeah, I guess like when there are hundreds of people or even thousands that apply for the same position, it's it makes sense to automate as many processes as possible. Okay, Divesh, so I was talking about outdoors. Oh, actually, like, I was just introducing myself before that, so you didn't really miss much. Okay, so I'm just gonna give you, okay, question from Kai. Was interested to learn a lot about that a lot of companies use ATS because I thought only big companies use it. Do you think small companies and startups use ATS? Um, I don't know. I would say probably not, just because if that's a small company or a startup, they probably want to save on every dime, and well, they would definitely have to pay for this tool for licensing and support. So I would say that's unlikely, but you still have to be, you know, um, your resume still has to match those keywords because even if person even at the point when person looks at your resume, you want it to look as strong as possible and as relevant as possible. Salary negotiation conversation sound like I didn't negotiate for my first job and I regret it. Yeah, honestly, I didn't negotiate for my first job either. Uh, and like there is a story I want to share when after my first co-op in Rakuten Kobo, they offered me a full-time position right away after I graduated from college, and I tried negotiating on it, and but they were in this position when they knew that I either accept it or lose the position, lose this confidence. So I just accepted it and I didn't think about it, and I regret it a lot. So coming back to the topic of how you negotiated, um, so in most cases you just have to like uh, negotiation is important part and you have to have all the information. So you have to do your research. You have to understand what's the uh, average compensation for this position at this company, and you can use Glassdoor for this. You can use Levels FYI. I know there are even more tools for this. You can use like some um, forums, like job-related forums, like Fishbone. There is a Fishbone app. You can ask people there. Maybe there are some like it's all anonymous, so people are not afraid to share this information. So after you collected this information, you want to think about your strongest points of your skills and your background, how it looks comparing to what they're looking for, and again you want to summarize that, and basically on the phone or via email you want to say that, hey, like mm, first of all, I did my research and I think that a fair pay for this position would be this, and on top of that I think with my knowledge and skills I would be able to be as efficient as as like to match this salary. And when you do this, I actually suggest you uh, put in like you asking probably like 20% more, just because like a common raise when you negotiate is 10%, but you actually want to aim higher because they're gonna lowball you, right? They're not if you ask for 10%, they're not gonna give you 10%. Obviously, meet they're gonna give you like 5% most likely, and that's a common thing. So again, ask higher, but be prepared to receive lower. So just give yourself some slack there. Yeah, no problem, Divesh. Right, guys. So I'm gonna give you one more minute, and we're gonna wrap it up. So if you got any questions about the job search or just want to discuss your job search strategy with us, you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. That's probably where you got the link where you registered for the webinar. Also, feel free to check out our website, hireprism.com. You can you can reach out to us via email, via info@hireprism.com. Oh, Kaira, question from Kai. What do you do in your current position at Ceridian? What your day looks like? Just curious. Well, it depends again, because we work in sprints. We follow agile methodology. So obviously at the end and at the beginning of the sprint, we have more meetings related to planning and retrospective. Like I'm about to be promoted to senior developer position. So like I kind of focus more on like code review, design, on solving some difficult problems. I don't know. I would say I don't code much these days. Like I think I spend my days mostly doing some troubleshooting of some issues, and yeah, I think. But this has mostly been happening for the last couple of months, just because of the project I'm in right now. I think before that, I definitely did more coding, probably like 60% of all time. How to prepare for technical interview? Well, again, it depends. First of all, you have to confirm with recruiting manager what type of technical interview you're being invited for. Is this the technical interview when you're just going to be asked some questions, like some theoretical questions, maybe some practical questions, but there won't be any hands-on? If this is hands-on, you have to confirm what kind of hands-on test it's going to be. Is it going to be like algorithm problem, solving an algorithm problem and design problem? Is it going to be like hands-on front-end development? Is it going to be hands-on full-stack development? So I would say this is like the most important part, the preparation part. So once you confirm what type of interview you should expect, at this point you should probably know like how to prepare to this. Obviously, if it's like no hands-on interview, like when you're just being asked some questions, then you may want to just brush up on your theory knowledge, like about some principles in development, some core principles like solid, object-oriented programming, some methodologies, maybe some frameworks, stuff like this. If this is hands-on experience in this hands-on interview, then you actually may want to practice as much as you can for that specific type of interview. Again, if it's front-end, practice front-end. If that's full stack, that's what you got to practice. Same goes for algorithmic problems.